All right, everybody. Well, hey, I hope you've been enjoying this full day where we've been talking about NFTs. We've been talking about brands. We've been hearing from some amazing folks. We just got done with a great session from Joseph Vincent talking on the legal side of things with our colleague here, Michael Morgan. We talked about smart contracts. We talked about community. And now to wrap up the day, I'm really excited to introduce you all to my good friend, who I'm sure most of you actually know, Justin Wu. Justin Wu has been a growth hacker for God knows how long, and a huge leader in the Web3 blockchain event space. He's been putting on lots of really great events for a number of years. I go to every one that I can, and we have Justin attend our events as well. So with that, Justin, love if you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Justin Wu, founder of Decentral. We host Web3 conferences around the world, and also, always happy to collab, work with Jonathan too for both Seattle local and also all his events around the world as well too. So it's all about building community in this space,
Yeah, it totally is. I love that you say, it's funny because we've had people, or at least I have people like, oh, like you probably don't like Justin, do you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I not? There are different NFT or Web3 type of conferences that try to be, very exclusionary or kind of like cool. But I think you've done a really good job of really being open and, sharing your network and your connections. And I'd love if you could kind of just talk about your philosophy when it comes to building community and events and all that entails.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up too. It's just I think that sometimes in the space, I think it's really the Web 2 way of thinking back then. It's just like when you see somebody doing something similar to you, like I was hosting Seattle events, you're hosting Seattle events. People are always trying to like the old Web 2 way is like, oh, this person is like competing against you and he's your enemy and all this stuff. But in Web 3, obviously it's a whole different model. Everybody is winning together. Like everybody is rising together by building the ecosystem. The space is still super brand new, but it's growing super fast. So the opportunity there is it's much more collaborative compared to what happened in like the normal startup and tech world that you and I have come from before, where everybody is doing their own thing, right? Like this is a shared economy, in a way that NFTs are shared. Everything is democratized and decentralized, and so we're all winning in different ways, and we're all doing stuff in different things too. So being not being collaborative is it goes against you in the space, especially community is everything. And there's so many different ways to kind of get your own crypto bag, NFT bag, that there's enough for everybody around, and we're all going to make it together. So that's kind of like the philosophy that we have as well too. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Same. I definitely think like that too. And oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, and I also say too, it's like we host events. You and I host events as well too, but like we're not like event organizers only. Like it's not our like we'll put on the community together and everything, but we're doing so much more beyond that as well. You have NFT Mint and TF Labs, so you guys are actually on the back end building out actually cool stuff and working on cool projects. And same with me, we do a lot of on the advisory side for community building and other things as well, and media and content. So it's just like events is just a cool way to just like host cool parties now as well. And we're not
Yeah.
like dedicated to only hosting events, versus some others that are only like purely dedicated events.
I totally agree because, and how we think about it with TF Labs is, hey, if how do we make sure that we're having good conversations and good conversation to be had, and then always making sure that we get to participate in? And it's like, hey, well, let's host good events. Let's partner with people like Justin and Decentral and do good events there as well. And Andreessen Horowitz recently said this maybe like a year or two ago, which I think made it more popular. But if you treat your business like a media company, then you basically open up more opportunities. So that's what we think about at TF Labs, with the other things we do. And I know that you obviously think that way too, right? It's like, hey, like the media side of that and owning, I don't want to, maybe owning is the wrong word, but just basically being able to facilitate, that's probably a better way to put it, like facilitate community, facilitate growth, and create like those supporting environments.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's just all about building content, community, and events all together, and just providing value and education, really. And I think that's really our goals, is just really educating people, and then just connecting with people too. So
Yeah.
definitely agree.
Well, I want to, if you're listening in now, I do want to give you opportunity to ask Justin a question, ask me a question, but, mainly ask Justin. And, if you have any questions about events, feel free to put that there. Justin, the theme of today is around NFTs and brands. And, I know you have a lot of brand experience as well. And, what might be some advice that you would give to, maybe a brand that's not into crypto or Web3 right now? And how can they start thinking about community, or do they just simply need to attend events? Should they be participating? Should they be doing their own events? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd say always both, right? Like if you find events that fit well for you, then yeah, join those events. And they don't have to be big events too. They could be small meetups. Grassroots is always cool too. Doing it locally, you and I have done small meetups all the way to like large conferences as well. So, like find the ones that work well and fit with what you can provide in terms of value. And that's all the thing too. What value can you provide to the event itself as well? Is through education, not just like shilling, right? Like if you can provide more of that, that's always good in terms of like you sharing your experience, and
Yeah,
what you can give to the community is more important than what you're taking from it. And
that's
then
such
yeah,
a
like
great point. I think not to cut you, keep
no,
going, but
no.
that's such a great point that I think people who are, call it, new to events don't realize, like the giving back to the event aspect of it. Because if you give back to the event, if you give back to the event creator, of course they're going to want to constantly invite you and want you to be present, because they know that you really care about that going. Whereas I've invited people to speak at our events who don't share it, just show up and leave right away. And it's like, well, why would I invite you back? Because
Yep. Don't.
like, why would I ever invite you back? Even though they're nice, I'm not saying that they're mean. I'm just saying more from a like, hey, like the way when I post an event, I have 30 spots I have to fill. So that means those 30 spots need to be people that care about this thing. And I'd love kind of how you think about that too.
Yeah, 100%. It's just like, and that's what we've seen throughout too, is like we're as event organizers, we're helping provide the stage and limited time slots to people as well. But if people are there just to like show themselves and just promote and just take from the community, and not actually participating or help sharing it out, then it's not reciprocal as well. And again, like this space is all about reciprocation and just helping each other out, right? And if you're just trying to do things for yourself, it's very evident, and it will not get you very far. And again, like the community is pretty tight knit and closed overall, from not closed, but it's still small, right? In the way that people's reputations and stuff does like share across other event organizers and stuff too. Like I've talking to some other event organizers in LA, New York as well too, and we just sometimes they vet other speakers and others too based on like people's experiences with them, if they were a nightmare to deal with. And I bet, and you and I have both met speakers that are pure
Yeah.
like divas essentially, that just come in and just like
Yeah.
want the red carpet rolled for them, and it's just like, no, like we're the ones helping organize. But one other point too I was going to get onto is also too is just like you can also create your own opportunity in terms of just like creating your own community too, if you're your own brand. And like create content, bring other collaborations and other people into your conversations as well. That's always a great way to both create content, community around it, and thought leadership, whether it be for NFTs, DeFi, or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because I think the pandemic kind of accelerated this, but that in conjunction with the way that we're used to consuming content, we don't only go to the television anymore, and arguably we don't only look online for things anymore. Whether it be apps, whether it be things like this, meetups, events. You said something that I think was super key, is it doesn't necessarily matter how big it is. Even if it's 5 people, if those 5 people are super engaged with what you're doing as a brand, and kind of become your super followers, or super community builders, there's tremendous value there.
And also too, it's like, if are you actually documenting and recording your content as well too? Like I've spoken at events too where the meetup is like maybe like 10, 15 people, but if you record it and it's just focused on you, then people don't really know. And as long as you're providing value for the content, then that event will extend further than the people are in the room. And you always, I always believe that you should combine both online and offline anyways, no matter what the event is, because the local in-person events can only have such limited reach, 10, 20, 50, even 100. But if you share it online, it could get up to thousands or tens of thousands as well, right? So
Totally.
obviously the impacts are very different, but still, like, reach and impressions is still also a huge contributing factor to all of it.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah, it's you think about from a slightly outside of this context, as you think of someone like Jake Paul or some of these influencers, and sure, you can say they were early in YouTube, but they were very consistent. They recorded their information. And then if you put it into the crypto space, I think someone like Anthony Pompliano has done a really good job of like creating content. And now, he's like this authority figure on, call it like the Bitcoin or kind of the financial side of crypto. And there's people like multiple, across, you probably know even more content creators than I. But it's really like that consistency and, figuring out who, to your point, who is their audience that they care to speak to.
Yeah, definitely. And, like I said, if you are consistently creating content, I think the most important part is, like, if you are deciding to go create content, then it's just you're kind of making the decision that you want to be like a media channel, then come off of it as that way. Like, say this is the podcast, put a name for the show or whatever, or the series, and people treat it more seriously, and then just have a regular schedule for it, so it's consistent as well too. So that's always a good way to get people going.
Yeah, so we're gonna open up to questions here. Anybody can ask questions they want, but I think it'd be fun if we ended on kind of call it like a yin yang thing here, in the sense of that. What are like some quick tips that we can give either the speaker who wants to speak, how, like, tips to how they can, approach someone like us or a conference to speak. And then the second part of that is like, what are like the things that, call it the secrets of how we might make a decision, or like red flags that come up that we decide to talk to someone. So let's start with the first.
Oh yeah, so for the speakers, what they could definitely do is again, like, come with some ideas of different topics. That's always helpful, because like you're for showing your expertise, and just saying, hey, I'm Justin Wu, okay, cool story, like what can I actually talk about, like give some bullet points. If you have previous talks before, that also helps too, just shows your portfolio or like where you've spoken before. Now if you're still brand new, that's still totally fine as well. Again, it just comes down to like, where can we slot you as an event organizer into different slots. Like what kind of content and perspectives can you provide, right? That's the people that we are, when we're looking through the applications, sometimes they'll share new ideas, and we're like, oh, that's really cool, like, never thought about that, and we could build a new talk all around that, or figure out where they can slot them so they're just not one dimensional, where I only want to talk about NFT enterprises, or I only want to talk about DAOs, like show multi dimensions if you can, if you have that experience, or just give a different, or just even feed a few different ideas. I think that's always helpful as well too. And in terms of other red flags too, people are just like super pushy, again, like they're not understanding that event organization takes a lot of time and energy to piece together. And again, like the more you're able to kind of just be collaborative and provide value, and again, like, even talk to how you can help promote and increase their reach to your guys' community too, so it's reciprocal. Do maybe an offer like giveaway, like an NFT giveaway, or some time giveaway to their audience as well. That's always a big benefit for that. So there's a lot of different ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, like, when someone reaches out, they want to speak at an event, is going back to what you said earlier in the conversation, is, show that you care about the community, right? That you want to, promote the community, or you want to participate in the community. One of the best examples I have of a speaker that I invited was this lawyer who's based out of Wyoming, and he's attended 3 of my conferences in the past, never once asked me to be a speaker. And then for the fourth conference, I asked him to be a speaker, and he's like, "Oh wow, I can't believe you asked me to be a speaker." I was like, "Of course I would want you to be a speaker. You've been such a great supporter of what we've been doing for so long, and you're super knowledgeable. Of course I would want you to." Totally agree with like showing the portfolio. But yeah, exactly. Really coming at it from a point of view of like, hey, I want to, speak at your event, but I also want to make sure that I get my community there, or I get folks there, or I, get you more audience or get you more tickets. Make it, you want to make it easier for the event promoter, because like I said, when I host an event, my events typically I'll kind of cap speakers at around 30 or so, maybe 35. And so the way I look at it, and this is kind of from a red flag slash, also from a thinking standpoint, is okay, so if I have 30 spots, that means those 30 spots need to go to people that are going to also help, promote this event in one way, shape, or form. So I'll break it kind of down like this. There's certain people that their face sells a ticket, right? Like,
100%. Yeah.
like they're so well known that you put their face on there, they sell a ticket. And then I'd say like the next tier is like, hey, like there's certain people that they work for a company that also kind of helps you sell a ticket, right? Like I don't know, they work for Coinbase or something, right? So like, hey, a very credible company. And then from there, it's like, okay, is this someone that has influence? Do they care about? And then call it a quote unquote like unheard of, speaker. This is really where I think there's opportunities for people there. But like I said, I've had people reach out to me and say like, hey, I want to speak at your event, and they make it all about them. And in the past, I'm like, cool, I'll give this person the opportunity. But then what usually has happened, unfortunately, is, they don't promote the event. They don't attend anything except the event itself. And so the way I look at it as an event promoter is like, oh, like what if I gave that to someone else who would have promoted the event? That becomes better. So I think the last thing I would say too, a red flag for me is when people are super over demanding about being paid to speak, because I do think that certain speakers, can be paid, but the way I look at it, it's similar if you are a musician, right? Like when you're starting out as a musician, you might not expect to get paid immediately, but if you are Pearl Jam or you're someone else, obviously, I can see that. But even still, what we've never really paid speakers. We just ask speakers like, hey, look, we run on a tight budget. And if you can get value out of this, and we can make sure that you get value out of this, we love to exchange value, but unfortunately we don't have the budget to pay. And that's almost never been a problem for us. I don't know how you've been able to handle that in the past. But
yeah. No, we on our side, in terms of our events, we have not really paid for any speaker to come. If we do, in which we will have in the future, like a talent budget now, it would be like the Gary V's
right
of that. But I'll just say from my experience of hosting events, I'm sure from you too, since 2017, like I've almost never ever, I actually have not even, I don't even know who I actually even ever paid. If we do something that we do pay, it would be maybe some for like comp travel or some
sure, yeah, exactly,
stuff, but that's only, we've reserved that for like influencers where there's a direct correlation of that. But other than that, like, you could be the best NFT pro expert, but I have another 10 or 20 more other people that will speak for free.
That's exactly it.
So,
yeah, that's exactly
like,
it. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like this comes up quite a bit, and then people feel offended that they're not speaking, or someone doesn't want to pay their fee. And it's like, hey, look, people pay what the market demands. And so to your exact point is that if I can find someone who, believes that they get a value exchange, because for me, like, if I speak at Justin's event, I would never expect to get paid, and I'm going to get so much value out of it. And then I'm going to produce value, right? Yeah, I know I'm going to meet people. I know I'm going to get video that he's going to produce out of it. I know that I'm going to be able to promote that overall. That's tremendous value. Does this take time and effort? Of course, but the value is, totally there. And even if it wasn't, I would still do it for the whole point that you made a little bit earlier. I know this is going to be recorded and really super produced, right? So I can use that later. And so I think that's how, people really need to think about it when it comes to speaking is, what's the value that you get out of it? Because someone paying you $500 or $1,000 or whatever, you can go find that, doing anything else. But how do you really think about building your brand as your personal brand and your audience? I don't know. Those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, and just keeping it real as well too. Like if you are a professional speaker in the crypto space, then that means you're not. I'm just keeping it real. Like you're not really building anything. You're literally trying to get paid to speak, and you're not actually building something in space. If you're actually building something in space, then you should be able to have your company and other people finance your trip, or your company can do it yourself as well too to contribute or be part of the company. And those are like the people that we want as actual builders and everything as well too. But what we're seeing now with like my experience too is like the NFT world is bleeding into like the Gary Vee and Ty Lopez and others marketers in the space, and those people are like paid professional speakers, and they're trying to bleed into the NFT and Web3 world, which I get. I've been from that world as well too, but like in crypto world, like it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't. I'm not really interested in professional speakers.
I agree.
I'm more interested in professional builders that actually build stuff, and they don't need anything to be paid to speak. They're here to share, and we're providing them stage time and value, and also, that again, that's just my style. But if you're
No,
going for a big flashy, like again, like it would have to be like a Gary Vee level, like Mark Cuban level
but
person. But even then,
right? So I'm not going to name the person, but I reached out to someone in that repertoire, and I was like, hey, I'd love this person to speak, and this is the value I can make sure that is provided, and these are the introductions, and these are all the things that we can do red carpet wise to make this happen. And they're like, yeah, it really, like, the speaking fee is $100K. And I replied to them and I go, no, please don't take any offense to this, but there's no way that I can get $100K worth of value from that person being there, like, period. And so, maybe if I spent $100K on that person and then $100K of value would come in immediately, yeah, of course, no brainer. You just wash it out. But I wouldn't be able to properly attribute $100K in value directed to one person speaking for 15 to 30 minutes.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I've never paid that, and I don't never plan to pay $100K at all.
Never. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't foresee that, especially for just speaking.
Well, this is fun. I'm glad we got to
Yeah.
talk on this last part, right, on these red flags. Justin, thanks for joining us. Any last minute thoughts or any last minute tips you want to leave people with before we break?
Yeah, like again, my best tips is, again, if you are speaking or if you don't have the opportunity to speak, then it's just like you can create your own channels, your own media, your own community as well too. Be collaborative, and not only just shield yourself, like highlight other people, like bring other people into in your circle, or use that platform, whether it be an online event, online meetup, or video content. Twitter Spaces is great as well too, and use that as a platform to raise other people up as well too, right? I think that's what's cool, is just creating value, and then from there you get reciprocated value back as well for bringing other people into this as well too. So that's kind of my best tips, is always document, create, very much like Gary Vee style of give, and then get back later on. That's my whole mentality when it comes to Web3 community building and content.
I totally agree. And Justin, you have 2 events coming up. You want to share those with everybody?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The first event that we have is Nfc Con. So it's nftcon.co. Completely free online event. Jonathan's be speaking on that one as well. And that is an online event for 3 days. You can just learn about all things NFTs. And then we'll do a cool in-person event called Decentral Austin. So it's decentralcon.com. Decentral has no E in it, so it's Decentral. And I'll show.
I just put
Okay,
both links
awesome.
in the thread there, so you can see it to the right. NFT Con and
Yeah.
Decentral Con.
Yeah, so those are like our events upcoming, and we'll have more other events throughout the year as well too, but they're planned out, and later in Q3, Q4. We'll always do Art Basel in Miami as well too. So if you want a good excuse to come to Art Basel in Miami, come through in December. Yeah, like our events is all about bringing different perspectives, and what differentiates our event from like Consensus and these other crypto conferences is that we bring in DeFi, DAOs, NFTs, games, builders, developers, investors all together. So we have different stages and different talks focus on each of those tracks and allow them to all connect with each other, because JPEG collectors and DeFi farmers are two different worlds, but they should be collaborating.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for joining us. And then I do want to plug also, TF Labs is hosting a conference in May, and Justin will be there.
Yep.
That's going to be in Seattle on May 6th. We're doing a full Web3 conference. We have folks from various protocols that will be there, builders, NFT folks, investors, etc. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest, we'd love to see you there. Put that in the thread as well.
Awesome.
Cool. Justin, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. And for everybody, thank you for joining us all day today. Make sure that you are following us on our channels, on Twitter, on the Discord. Ross has that pinned. We're going to go ahead and end this session, but then we're going to go into that networking spot. It's the Q&A. So I invite you to come check that out for just a second before you head off for the rest of your day. Awesome. All right, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Justin.